On today's show, I'm re-ranking my top 30 Rangers prospects, and it seems like the Rangers may have just figured something out about how to develop some pitching prospects.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into my top 30 prospect rankings, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase lockedonmlb for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, the Rangers farm system has been doing okay this year. It hasn't been the best year for Rangers prospects. There haven't been all that many, at least on the position player side, of position players that are breaking out and having absolutely fantastic seasons. But there's been quite a bit of turmoil, at least in my top 30. Not as much in some of the other top 30s, at least. Pipelines has stayed pretty steady. But especially in the top 10, there's been quite a bit of turnover for me. Now, not only because Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford have graduated from prospect status, but some of the guys that were in my top 10 have just not had the best years. Some of them have had just straight up awful years. But there are quite a few new guys on my top 30 list. There are, I believe, 7 different new players on this list, including 6 out of the first 7 in this top 30. On today's show, I'm going through the top half. I won't talk too much about the All-Star game. Good to see Kirby Yates in there and get a perfect inning. Good to see Marcus Semien get a hit in there despite hitting 9th. And, of course, Corey Seager hitting a ball hard and getting robbed by a not great defensive outfielder. Sure, fine, whatever. Good to see Bruce Bochy get the win. Only the second manager in MLB history to win the All-Star game in 2 different leagues, because that is just the Bruce Bochy way. Now let's get into this top 30 prospects. Number 30 on my list is Brayan Mendoza, a left-handed pitcher who is 20 years old, listed at 6 foot, 155 pounds. He has been really, really solid in Down East this year. He was born in Isla de Margarita in Venezuela. He is like I said, a lefty starting pitcher. 16 games so far this year, 11 starts, an ERA south of 3, and 64 in a third innings. Striking out more than a batter per 9, striking out 3.5 times as many batters as he walks. One interesting thing about him is that he's allowed 19 total runs on the season, or 19 earned runs, and 29 runs overall. So 10 unearned runs, and nearly a third of the runs that he has let in have been unearned. But seeing this kid being 2 years younger than the average player in Down East, being a lefty, having those strikeout numbers, pitching decently deep into games, and he's been solid for a solid Down East Wood Ducks team. At least their pitching staff has been really, really good this year. He has been, pretty consistent from month to month. He hasn't had, one amazing month. He hasn't had any terrible months either. He's been just pretty much the model of consistency, putting up very similar numbers in April, in May, in June, and July. July has been his best month so far. 11 innings so far this month, an ERA of 1.64, striking out 11 batters in those 11 innings. Solid year for him for the Down East Wood Ducks, and he has been on my radar. Debating him and Dane Acker. I really wanted to put Dane Acker on here after that amazing first month of the season, but Acker has kind of definitely fallen off the last couple of months. I'd been wavering about putting Acker on for the last couple of years, honestly, but I just don't think he is going to end up making my top 30, maybe ever, unless he has an amazing back half of the season. Now, number 29 prospect in this Rangers system, Pablo Guerrero. not a whole lot of people were talking about Pablo Guerrero because, well, when you're a first base prospect and you're in the Arizona Complex League, you have to put up some pretty good numbers to, turn some heads. And so far, he really has. He's played in 46 games for the Complex League. He's 17 years old. That's another thing with him. He is very young. The strikeout numbers aren't ideal. 158 strikeouts in 190 plate appearances, but when he's slugging over 500, when he's got an on base over 360, as a 17-year-old in the Arizona Complex League, so he has already made it stateside, that is something to keep an eye on. He has mostly played first base. He's played a little bit of right field, a little bit of left field, 32 games at first, 12 at DH, 15 in left, 3 in right field. A bigger guy who is tapping into that power, listed at 6'2", 200 pounds. He was born in Bani in the Dominican Republic. He's a guy who's putting up really, really solid numbers. And being that young at this stage, putting up, already showing power numbers, 6 home runs in 46 games as a 17-year-old in stateside ball, that is something worth keeping an eye on. Now, he's going to have to keep hitting. It is hard to be a first base prospect that does well in prospect lists or has a lot of value because you just got to hit, and you got to hit like crazy. And it would help if he played another position. We'll see how much time he gets in the outfield towards the end of the season. But if he makes it all the way to down east as a 17-year-old, that will signal something. I think he's probably going to stick in the Arizona Complex League through the rest of the year. But if he makes it to full season ball as a teenager, which I think he will next year, if he keeps putting up numbers like this for the rest of the season, then I don't see any reason why he wouldn't get promoted late on. He started out a little slow in May, got even better in June. In May, his OPS was 720. In June, his OPS was 911. And in July, so far in 9 games, his OPS has been 1,026. He has just been getting better and better, which is exactly what you want to see from these youngsters in these higher leagues, or where they are, younger than the average player. That is something definitely to keep an eye on. I have been impressed with him. I haven't seen him pop up on too many prospect lists, but he's definitely one that I'm keeping my eye on. Number 28 prospect is David Davalillo, who has been a right-handed pitcher for the Down East Wood Ducks. He is listed at 6'1", 175 pounds. He is 21 years old, out of Acumare del Toy in Venezuela. He has pitched exceptionally well for the Down East Wood Ducks this year. A little bit younger than the average pitcher in that league, about a year younger than the average pitcher, but he's been putting up fantastic numbers this season. An ERA of 168, 14 games, 13 of those were starts, 64 innings, exactly 1 strikeout per 9 innings, 2.5 walks per 9 innings, and just 0.3 home runs per 9 innings. Dude keeps the ball in the ballpark. Dude keeps the ball from getting hit hard. He is striking out a decent number of guys. We'll see how long it takes for him to get promoted to Hickory, but the numbers he's been putting up have been very, very good. They have been turning heads as well, and I'm excited to see what this kid can do for the rest of this season. Now, number 27 is Joseph Montalvo, the 22-year-old right-handed pitcher, listed at 6'2", 185 pounds right now. He is on the 7-day IL. He is out of Bayamon in Puerto Rico. He was a 20th round draft pick the Rangers got back in the 2021 draft. He has been really, really good at every single stage he's pitched at. He pitched in the Arizona Complex League back in 2022 as a 20-year-old, had a 2.31 ERA. Last year, he was with Down East. He had a 2.83 ERA in 95 and a third innings. Also had 107 strikeouts. The walks were a little bit of a problem last year at 3.7 per 9. Not anything crazy bad, but just not ideal, not exactly where you would want things to be. This year he's gotten those walk numbers down. He's gotten the strikeout numbers up. He has had at least 10 strikeouts per 9 at every level he has pitched at so far. 56 innings so far this year, a 2.5 ERA, 68 strikeouts, 10.9 Ks per 9, 2.7 walks per 9. So he has gotten those walks down a little bit this year. He has been very, very competent this year. Still about a year younger than the average pitcher in his league. So you like seeing that. You like seeing him, be a little bit younger than the average player. It means the Rangers have some confidence in him. Right now, he is on the 7-day IL. Hopefully, he will get off of that fairly soon. I don't know if he's going to see Frisco by the end of this year, but it seems like the pattern with him is to just keep him at one level every single year. But this is a guy who has done well at every single stage he's been at so far, and that is something to keep an eye on for sure. Now, the number 26 prospect is a guy who is not having the best season after a breakout year. That is Abimelec Ortiz, the first baseman / outfielder out of Bayamon in Puerto Rico. He was an undrafted free agent that the Rangers signed in 2020. Last year was his breakout year, hit for crazy power, had really great on-base skills as well. A 990 OPS between Down East and Hickory last year. Spent most of the year at Hickory. Did about as well at each spot. Hit really well in Surprise in the Arizona Fall League. But this year in Frisco, he's 2.5 years younger than the average player. Still pretty young, 22 years old, but it has been a bit of a struggle for Abimelec Ortiz. He started out the year pretty darn well. In April, a 788 OPS. Not a whole lot of power for him this year, just 5 home runs in 280 plate appearances, which is not what you want from a guy who is a first base prospect. May was absolutely brutal for him. He had a 363 OPS and 80 plate appearances in that month. Got a little bit better in June, and now in July he is starting to turn things around quite a bit, hitting over 360 on base, nearly 490. Slugging is over 430 at a 920 OPS so far in 9 games in July. He has been making improvements. He is a guy who is going to have to hit a lot because he is pretty much just a first baseman. Spent a little bit of time in the outfield, but he is a first baseman. He had eye surgery before last season, so that has really helped him with his vision. He was really impressive at Frisco Media Day this year. I'm rooting for this kid. I think he's got incredible raw power, and if he can match that hit tool and keep that on base pretty high, this is a guy who could end up cracking the big leagues with the Rangers. Coming up, we'll talk about some pitchers who have been absolutely breaking out this year that were not on my radar before this year. Right after this word from our sponsors. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get an expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. If you're looking for promotions, then PrizePicks has got you covered every week. From lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you're having a losing lineup on Fridays. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. The next prospect on my list is number 25, Izack Tiger. Rangers' 7th round draft pick last year out of community college. He is listed at 6'2", 175 pounds. He's 23 years old, so a little bit on the older side, but the stuff has been electric. The shape of his pitches isn't ideal at this moment, but when you got a fastball that sits 94 to 98 and touches all the way, 93 to 96 and touches all the way up to 100 miles an hour, that is definitely going to turn some heads. The Rangers, again, are working to make that a little bit, more deceptive. It hasn't been, as deceptive. It's been kind of straight and narrow. The slider has been really, really darn good for Tiger. It's been a little bit longer for him to actually start the season. He started the season on the injured list, but so far he has been with the Down East Wood Ducks most of this year. Pitched a little bit in the Arizona Complex League when he was building up, but with the Down East Wood Ducks, he has been really darn good so far, including his last start out, which was his best of the season. His last start for the Wood Ducks was against the Salem Red Sox, went 5 innings of no-hit ball, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Just a fantastic outing for him. Only needed 63 pitches to go those 5 no-hit innings. He has been on a limited pitch count so far because, the Rangers aren't quite sure if he's going to be a reliever or a starter. Obviously, with pretty much every prospect that's a pitching prospect, you are going to give them as much rope to be a starting pitcher as they can get. He scrapped the changeup for a splitter, which has been pretty effective for him so far. So a 3-pitch pitcher, the fastball, the slider, and the splitter, which has shown some promise so far this season. With the Down East Wood Ducks, he has had a pretty darn good season so far. He has pitched in 11 and 2/3 innings so far. Gosh, that was for the Arizona Complex League. For the Down East Wood Ducks, 13 and 2/3 innings, a 2.63 ERA, and 16 strikeouts. So over 10 Ks per 9 in Down East. He's a little bit older than the average pitcher there, 1.3 years older to be precise. Older than the average pitcher there. The stuff has been pretty darn good. Again, once they get the shape of those pitches a little bit better, we'll see how he plays up as a starter, how long he sticks as a starter, but having a guy who can touch triple digits with a nasty breaking ball and a splitter to go along with it, that is all the makings of someone who is definitely worth keeping an eye on, especially at number 25 on the prospect list. Next guy on this list is another Rangers draft pick out of community college. This is Kohl Drake, the left-handed starting pitcher, listed at 6'5". By the way, happy birthday to Kohl Drake, turns 24 today. He just earned a promotion to High A Hickory. He has pitched in 3 games for the Crawdads this year after absolutely dominating in Down East to start this season. He is a big old tall lefty who's got some really, really nasty stuff in Down East. He pitched in 43 innings, 71 strikeouts, and a 1.67 ERA. Let me say that again. A sub-2 ERA, 43 innings, 71 strikeouts, and oh, by the way, under 2 walks per 9 innings. Absolutely fantastic stuff for him. And Hickory hasn't quite been as spectacular, still pretty darn good. 15 1/3 innings in 3 starts, a 3.5 ERA, 20 strikeouts, 1.2 walks per 9, 11.7 Ks per 9. The stuff has been really, really nasty for him so far. I think he'll probably finish the season at Hickory. He's around the average age of a pitcher in Hickory, just turned 24, but this is still his age 23 season since he turned 24, in mid-July after the season is more than halfway over. Really, really excited to see what he's got in store, but having a great season, having a big old tall lefty with these kind of strikeout numbers has been very, very impressive. If he can get to 14.9 Ks per 9 in Hickory, that would be incredibly impressive. I think we'll probably see him at some point in Frisco next year, but we'll see what he has to look like for the rest of the season at Hickory. Hopefully he can lower that ERA down a little bit, get those strikeouts up a little bit, but even if they stick at just 11.7 Ks per 9 at High 8 Hickory, that is still a really darn impressive pitching prospect. Next guy on this list is someone you're probably pretty familiar with, Jonathan Ornelas, the utility player who has been on the Rangers roster. He is just still barely eligible for prospect status. Glove first guy, a really good clubhouse guy, not the strongest hit tool, has shown a little bit more offensive aptitude in the at-bats he's had this year in the big leagues as opposed to last year. Even his numbers in AAA aren't that great this year, but the glove is legit. He is a legit bench guy who can help you out and play multiple positions, play multiple positions well, even be a pinch runner, as we have seen him do a couple of times. Not all that much to say on Jonathan Ornelas. He kind of is who he is at this point, but who he is a solid big leaguer, even if it is at the end of the bench. Next guy on this list, number 22, Jesus Lopez, the only catcher on my list. He is a 19-year-old catcher out of Lara in Venezuela. He is listed at 6'1", 180 pounds, hits left-handed, throws right-handed. He has been with Down East so far this season, about 2 years younger than the average player at that level. Made his stateside debut last year, had a really, really great season for the Arizona Complex League, albeit in a smaller sample size. Only 13 games for him there, just over 50 plate appearances, and a 1,041 OPS. That is what turned my head last year, having a catcher who's a teenager in stateside ball with 1,000 OPS, even though it was a smaller sample size. That is a sign of, okay, the Rangers really, really believe in this kid, and pulling him into full season ball as a teenager while a catcher, that's a sign that the Rangers are really, really high on this kid. The power numbers haven't been as much there this year as they were last year. 3 home runs in 48 games as opposed to 3 home runs in 13 games for him last year. Hitting .250, on base of .307, slugging just .367, a .674 OPS, which is in the top half of the team because it has been not great offensively for the Down East Wood Ducks this year, but still him being a catcher, being 19, being in full season ball, and putting up respectable numbers, that is something that is definitely worth keeping an eye on. He started off the season a little bit hotter in April, a 793 OPS. It has gotten worse each and every month, so I think a little bit draining the physical toll of being a catcher for the full season. It's been a little bit draining on him, but definitely one to keep an eye out on, even though the numbers haven't been as impressive. I think I look a little bit more at where the Rangers are putting guys at their age and with their experience a little bit more than the numbers. That also goes for Aidan Curry, a right-handed pitcher, the Rangers' number 21 prospect on my list, listed at 6'5", 205 pounds. Another one of those guys who was a 2020 undrafted signee. This year he has been with Hickory. Last season he split time between Down East and Hickory, most of his time at Down East, with a 2.30 ERA last year. Ended up pitching 88 and a third innings for the full season. This year in Hickory, 2 years younger than the average pitcher at that level. The numbers have not been great. They've actually been pretty bad, a 7.34 ERA on the season. It's been getting better, though, and that's exactly what you hope for. An ERA over 8 in April, an ERA over 10 in May. In June, it was down to 6.26, and in 2 starts so far in July, it is down to 2.89. The peripheral numbers around it have been decent. The walks have been a little bit more of a problem this year than they have in years past, a 4.7 walks per 9. It wasn't quite that level at Down East last year, but still the strikeout numbers have been fantastic, 11.7 Ks per 9, even though he's getting hit around quite a bit, being 21 at High 8 Hickory, 2 years younger than the average player. He'll definitely stay here for the full season. I don't see a scenario where he makes it up to Double-A at the end of the year. And I think he'll probably be back at least to start the next season at Hickory. But putting up those strikeout numbers and getting better each month, that is what the Rangers are looking for. And that is a great sign for Aidan Curry, the number 21 prospect on this list. Coming up, we're talking about the last 3 prospects in my bottom half of the top 30, including one guy who was all the way in the top 10 just a couple years ago. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The number 20 prospect on my top 30 Rangers prospect list is Dustin Harris, the outfielder with the AAA Round Rock Express. Just not that long ago, Dustin Harris cracked all the way into my top 10, but this year it's just not been great for him. It hasn't been terrible, but it just hasn't been the kind of season that I was hoping for from him. Last year with Round Rock, he had a much, much better year. Split time between Frisco and Round Rock. Not the most impressive numbers in Frisco last year, but in Round Rock, he played in 67 games and had an 836 OPS. This year, the power has just sapped. It has just been dry this year. He's got a 756 OPS. He's been on a bit of a hot streak in July with a 1079 OPS in 11 games so far this month. But the power numbers have just been way, way down. He had 6 home runs so far this year. 4 of those came in April. 1 came in May. 1 came in June. And so far, even though he's hitting over 400 in the month of July, he doesn't have a single home run this month yet. And that is a concerning thing with Harris. He is a guy who is going to play the corner outfield. He's got some speed. He's got some pop. The approach has been, hit and miss. The walks have been fine. He's got 38 walks in 349 plate appearances so far this year. Strikeouts have been fine. 72 of those in 349 plate appearances so far this year. One interesting note, one good thing in his favor is that he's hitting lefties incredibly well this year. He's got a 919 OPS in 90 plate appearances against lefties this year, whereas he's got a 703 OPS against righties in just over 250 plate appearances. So kind of some interesting reverse splits going on there. The tools are all there, but it's just kind of a case of prospect fatigue. He's 24 years old. He just hasn't progressed quite at the level that I was hoping for. That year that he had in 2021, where he looked like the next big thing, a 2020 season, 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. Then the next year he followed it up with a decent power display, 17 home runs that year. Last year he had 14 home runs. The power numbers have been declining. That is not what you want to see for a guy who is 24 years old in Round Rock. Hasn't even really sniffed getting a chance at the big league level despite not having great offensive numbers from the outfield like the Rangers expected. I mean, the fact that they were calling up guys like Derek Hill over Dustin Harris, it kind of shows you where the Rangers are on Dustin Harris, which is frustrating because I still think the potential's in there. It just hasn't quite been there on display this year. Next guy on my list is number 19, Braylin Morel, an outfielder at 18 years old in the Arizona Complex League, putting up fantastic numbers so far this season. 41 games so far, hitting over 300, on base over 400, slugging over 500, a 982 OPS for the youngster this year. He plays the outfield mostly in the corners. He's played 11 games in left field, 66 games in right field, and just 1 in center field. The walk numbers have been pretty darn good. Strikeout numbers aren't ideal, but they're not terrible. 43 strikeouts in 182 plate appearances. Not ideal, but it's not terrible by any means. The walk rate has been, pretty darn good. He's hitting over 300. The on-base numbers are good. He's showing power as an 18-year-old in stateside ball. That is a good thing for him. He's got a big arm out there in right field. The defensive instincts, not quite there yet, but again, he's pretty darn young, so I think he will end up sticking in right field with that cannon of an arm. He can get to be, I think, an average defensive outfielder. The hit tool is there, the approach is there, the power is there, and already showing up at a young age. That is an encouraging sign for this kid who was not on my top prospect list before this season. Number 18, we have Gleider Figuereo, a left-handed hitting third baseman with the Down East Wood Ducks this year. He has been fantastic. After a not great season last year, he has already been promoted to Hickory. In Down East, he had an 820 OPS. So far in Hickory, hasn't been quite as smooth. Just 2 walks to 23 strikeouts in 63 plate appearances so far, hitting just 200, a 682 OPS. But showing the power numbers again this year, that has been an encouraging sign. Already 17 home runs for him in 337 plate appearances. That's encouraging. This is a guy who's going to need to hit for power. Defensively, he's been fine at third base. Not anything outstanding, but having a position other than first base gives you a little bit of pressure off the bat to not be, not have to hit like crazy. The last week has been pretty darn good for him. In 2 games, he has already hit 2 home runs, hitting over 300 in those 2 games, but also has 5 strikeouts in 19 plate appearances on the week. The month of May was his best month so far, an 824 OPS, the only month that he's had with an OPS over 800. 6 home runs is the most he's hit in any month. That was back in May with Down East. Encouraging signs for Figuereo. Last year, I was kind of waning off of him a little bit. Not quite as great of power numbers last year as I was expecting, but this year he has been really darn good. Next guy on this list is Yeison Morrobel at number 17. He plays the outfield for the Hickory Crawdads. Last year he spent at Down East with a fantastic 384 on base percentage. He hits left-handed. He's got some speed. He also throws left-handed as well. Listed at 6'2", 170 pounds. He is just 20 years old, already at High A Hickory. The numbers overall this year have not been as impressive as they were last season. The walk rate has been down from last year, or the on-base rate has been significantly down. The hitting has been down quite a bit. But again, he's 2 years younger than the average player at his league, like he was last year, so that's encouraging. He's shown a lot more power this year, which is also encouraging. 6 home runs in 77 games this year, as opposed to just the 1 that he hit last year in 37 games. Dealt with some injuries last year, so he missed quite a bit of time. Didn't have nearly as much time as I would have liked to have seen him last year, but having him be healthy this year, having him put up a little bit more power. The on base has been under 300, so not ideal, but again, he is still young for the league, and if the Rangers keep pushing him, that means they like what they're seeing and they are believers in this kid. Now, the last one on this list, number 16, Jose Corniel, a right-handed pitcher who the Rangers are, I think, really darn high on. He is listed as the number 8 prospect in the Rangers MLB Pipeline top 30 prospects list. He has not pitched at all this year. He is 21 years old. He is undergoing season-ending elbow reconstruction, UCL reconstruction surgery, so he has not pitched at all this season, and he will not pitch at all this season, unfortunately. He was supposed to pitch in AA Frisco this year as a 21-year-old. That was an encouraging sign. Last year, he split time between Down East and Hickory. He had a 2.92 ERA in 100 innings and 119 strikeouts last year. That was encouraging to see as well. The year before, he was at Down East. Not as great of numbers the first couple years of his pro career, but last year, going over 100 innings, maybe that was a bit much. Maybe that's why he started the season on the IL with some elbow issues and then ended the season on the IL with what we're not calling, I guess, Tommy John surgery anymore. Strikeout numbers have been pretty darn good for him. Obviously, the Rangers are big believers in him. He is 6'3", 165 pounds. Got a little bit more room for adding some weight, some velocity. At 6'3", that is the kind of frame that you expect to hold up as a starting pitcher. Fastball has been his best pitch so far. It is 92 to 95, touching all the way to 97. Also got a slider, a cutter, a changeup. Walk numbers have been decent, and I'm bummed that we're not going to get to see him this year. I feel like every system has at least one guy get Tommy John surgery every year, and I guess this is just the guy who is going to get Tommy John surgery for the Rangers this year. Would have loved to have seen him pitch. Obviously, the Rangers are big believers in him, and I'm hoping that he comes back fully healthy next year. Not exactly sure when we will end up seeing him. Maybe it'll be towards the end of next year. So it'll be a huge bummer if he misses basically 2 seasons of development from this, but he's still so young. He's to the point where, well, if he comes back when he's 23 and pitches in AA, he'll still be around league average age for that level. But again, missing a season of development or a season and a half of development, it seems like it'll be, at this point, not the best sign, but still a lot to dream on for number 16 prospect Jose Corniel. That's going to do it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow talking about the rest of my top 30 prospects. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.